Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson. Motherhood is both amazing and difficult at the same time. The Passport Mommy, Michelle Jerson, is here to share in your journey.
It's amazing. It really is, just watching them grow and see how much change and how much they learn just without the filters around them.
Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
Welcome to the show. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. So if you've been listening to the show for a while, thank you so much. If you're a new listener, or maybe you've just recently downloaded the podcast, I thought I would take a little time and just introduce myself. We always have such wonderful guests on the show. I love to have people on who are involved in inventions. I love to have people on who have started a product because of their own need that they've seen within their lives as being a parent. I love talking about family travel, health and wellness, pretty much anything that affects us as parents. And I have to say that before becoming a parent, I was clueless. I knew nothing about taking care of a child. I had never even changed a diaper. And now I have a 2.5-year-old and a 6-month-old, and it's amazing how much you learn so quickly. They say that you learn on the job, and I was so nervous because I didn't even know what a onesie was. I know this sounds pathetic, but I didn't even know what a onesie was. And I had to call my sister-in-law to come over and help me put together my breast pump for the first time, and I was just so nervous about everything. But then, as the weeks went on and I was nursing, I took joy in that, and I said, thank goodness, because I know that there are plenty of moms who, for whatever reason, just can't nurse, and that's fine too. And they either pump or they do formula. Some just do formula by choice. I have some friends who just choose to do formula because they're just not into nursing. And so for me, I had wanted to nurse, so I was glad I was able to. But that being said, motherhood is challenging. There are so many things that come up on a daily basis. And then overall, just how we're feeling in general as moms. Because I know personally, I struggle in the fact that I want to still do so much in my career, but yet I also want to be a somewhat stay-at-home mother. And now that I have a 6-month-old, I'm not ready to send him to daycare just yet. But yet I feel like I should be doing so much more. And that's why I truly admire these mompreneurs who I have on the show, because they are moms and they started products when they were new moms because they saw a need and that was their motivation. So to find the time to do that and to also be a mom, I find to be truly incredible. So that is why this show highlights them quite often. It also gives you ideas if you're looking for gifts for the holidays, if you're looking for places to travel to, or health and wellness tips for you and your child. That being said, I'd also love to talk with you about just funny moments and things that go on a daily basis with myself and my 2.5-year-old and my 6-month-old. So yesterday, I took my 2.5-year-old to a kids' yoga class, and I was really excited because at home, she likes to do some yoga poses. We do happy baby, we do downward dog, and she always says yoga, 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 or she says yogi, yogi, yogi. So I asked her when I picked her up from daycare if she wanted to go to a kids' yoga class, and she said yes. So we went, and my mistake is that I let her bring her blankie to class. Now, at first, I told her that when we get there, blankie has to stay in the car. But I ultimately gave in because she didn't want to leave it. And the entire time in class, she basically took her blankie and kept tucking in her little brother, who I also had with me because I bring him pretty much everywhere because it is hard to get a babysitter. We just moved to a new area, and I figure why not bring him to yoga too? So the class starts off with the teacher going around the room and asking everybody's name. And when she got to my daughter just turned her head and didn't say anything. So I gave her name for her. Then the teacher started chanting everybody's name. And I tried to get my daughter to sit with me and put her hands together and chant everybody's name as we went around the room. Nope, she was not having it. She was either tucking in her baby brother with her blankie, or she was running around the entire room with her blanket screaming. And at one point I said to the teacher, I said, I think I should probably go. I don't want to disturb your class anymore, because the other girls in the class, and there was a boy too, they were probably 4 and 5 years old. So at that point I realized this class probably not for her yet. Although I have seen kids her age take yoga, and I thought maybe it would be good. It would be good for her. It would center her. It would calm her down. It would relax. She'd sleep better at night. But it wasn't happening. So the teacher said, no, it's okay. You can stay. She's having fun. Okay, we stayed. And then my daughter got down on the ground and started rolling around like a log, and just went from one person's mat to the next, like a little log. And at first I was really frustrated, and I kept trying to take away her blankie and saying, listen, we don't have blankie during class. Let's focus. Let's pay attention. Let's watch the teacher. And then I realized, first off, I didn't want to make a big deal and take away her blankie in front of everybody, because then she would cry hysterically. I tried to take her into the corner and talk to her. She didn't want to hear it. So we stayed, and I eventually just had to tell myself, you know what? Either A, she's just not ready for this class yet. Maybe we have to wait a few months or a year. Or B, she just likes being a little more active. I personally, not always a huge fan of yoga. I personally find it hard to relax. However, I was hoping that maybe it would help her, because I know how beneficial it can be for children of all ages. But I had to leave there and say to myself, it's okay. And you really just have to laugh at moments like this, because at first when I left there, I was so frustrated and I was so stressed out. And I was like, I am so much less relaxed than I was when I first went to this class. And that's really not the point of it. And then when we left, my son was hungry, because normally we're home at that time. The class was over and he's eating his dinner, and we're just an hour before bedtime. So there was a lot going on. And last night basically just reminded me that, one, you can't take things too seriously. And just because you might want something for your child, it does not mean that they want it. And that's something that I think a lot of parents could benefit from hearing, because a lot of times we want our child to either do what we like to do, or to do things that we never got to do when we're trying to relive our own childhood through our children and give them what we didn't have. But the point is, they may be, and they probably are, totally different people than we were and we are, and that we should respect their individuality, and that we should respect what makes them happy. And if my daughter got more joy last night just running around with her blankie and tucking her brother in and taking all of the mats from yoga and placing them all together with each other, that's just what she does. And that's okay. So maybe next time we'll go to a more active gym class, and we won't try yoga just yet. And I also feel that we can't compare our children to other children. And even if there were other children her age who were perfectly relaxed and calm in the class, and my daughter's not, that's okay. Maybe there are other things that my daughter excels at and really enjoys doing that the other children just aren't into. Everybody is unique. Everybody is different. And it really taught me last night that I need to celebrate what she is great at and what she does enjoy, and really just follow her lead on those things. And sure, I can try to point her in different directions and take her to certain classes that I think she'd really like, whether it's a music class or a gymnastics class, or I was hoping a yoga class, but I could just take her and see how she does. And then maybe wait and take her again in a few months. But I really have to let her lead the way and show me what she's into, because at the end of the day, I feel what matters most as a mother is to show her that I love her and that I support her and that I care about her, and I just want her to have fun, especially at 2.5 years old. Sure, you want her to learn different things, and you want discipline, and you want a sense of calmness, but you also just want her to be. You just want your child to be, especially at 2.5. They have their entire life ahead of them for structure, for instruction, for sitting still. So just let them be. So I mentioned before how my biggest challenge is finding a balance between motherhood and all of the things that I'd like to do career-wise. Well, next up, we have a woman on the show, my good friend Laura Smith, who I've known for years from the radio business, and she has always been successful at both of those things. She got into radio when her daughter was 10 years old, and she has successfully had a career both in radio and as a mother for over 20 years. She now has a show on WGCH in Greenwich, Connecticut, 1490 AM, which can be heard Monday through Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. And she's going to join us next just to talk about her career path and what it's been like for her when it comes to balancing motherhood with her career. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy, and don't forget you can follow us on social, on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Passport Mommy. You can also check out the website, passportmommy.com, and drop me an email anytime, Michelle@PassportMommy. I would love to hear what's going on in your world with parenting, and if you have any topics that you'd like to hear about on this program, you could write those in your email as well. I'm Michelle Jerson.
Motherhood is a journey. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
So I was talking before about the whole balance of motherhood and working and just how much of a challenge it could be. But I have a good friend of mine. Her name is Laura Smith, and she has been at this for so long, doing radio and being an incredible mother to now a beautiful, I shouldn't even say young girl. I mean, she is successful. She has a career of her own. And Laura, you're just an admiration because you have had such a great radio career over the years. Thank you so much for joining me today, Laura Smith.
Michelle, it is my pleasure. It's been so wonderful because along the way you meet incredible people in this crazy business called radio, and you have been one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, thank you. So we reconnected recently. I mean, we've been friends for a while, but, you know, I had 2 kids and I was kind of out of the loop a little bit. And we reconnected because you just started a brand new show on one of the stations that this show is on, WGCH 1490 AM in Greenwich, Connecticut. Tell everybody about the show. And even if they're not local to Connecticut, they can listen at WGCH.com.
23 years ago this week, I started training at WGCH. And wow. I was much younger then. I think she was 10. I think I had a 10-year-old. And I called up the station and said, if you train me, I'll work for free. And the GM said, well, that's not legal, but come in. When can you come in? And I said, tomorrow. And then that's how it started. I walked into the radio station knowing absolutely nothing about radio, but I was an actress and I had started doing voiceover. So I was a little familiar with talking on a microphone and such. But anyway, I started training by watching the great George Wright and just kind of shadowing him. And 3 months later, I had a full-time job there, writing copy in the morning, jumping on the air in the afternoon, and then producing the commercials that I wrote in the morning. And That was really the beginning of probably just the most exciting time of my life up until that point. And since then, I have gone 23 years into about 8 different radio stations, taking me into New York City. I was at 106.7 Light FM, which is kind of one of the biggest music stations in the country. And then I ended up the last 9 years at WABC Radio, which is where I met you because we had a couple of chances to work together. And then I ended up coming back home to WGCH. And so I'm calling the brand new show The Way Home with Laura Smith. And it's just really a variety show, a gamut of interesting conversations, meaningful dialogue with very wonderful people, and you were one of them. You were on last week. I was talking about women in broadcasting specifically, and so it's a show that goes anywhere and everywhere on every different topic. So it's been a real pleasure to be back home in Greenwich.
I love that because I feel like there are not enough general lifestyle talk shows out there. We turn on the radio dial and we hear a lot of politics, but to just have a show that has the leeway to just have interesting people on. That's really what we want to hear, especially women. I think anybody, men and women.
Yeah, men, women, kids. Last night I had a mother-daughter team. The daughter is a top-notch real estate broker, and the mother is an interior designer and a medium. And so they came on the program, and the conversations are just always fascinating to me, Michelle, and I know you know this too because you do this. It's just stories that are, to me, the most fascinating. Unreality is not interesting to me. Just people's real lives are so fascinating to me. And yes, I also love interviewing, women who have come so far in their respective careers and stuff like that. But I just love talking to human beings.
Right, exactly. And that's really what radio is about. Now, I think it's incredible that you have basically, the types of shows that you have done over the years have all revolved around the same principle. But you have a real big interest in psychics and different mediums. Tell me about that.
Well, I don't know if it's in my blood or not. Apparently, my great-grandfather had a crystal ball, a real one. So we're talking, back in the 1800s or something. And then I think my great-grandmother on my other side was a tea leaf reader. So whether that has anything to do with me being interested in the esoteric arts, I don't know. But about 12 years ago, I started a daily program on Sirius XM that was called Above and Beyond. And I have since done that show in about 6 different iterations on WABC and such, and PLJ before it disbanded. But I'm so fascinated by people's abilities. They're really gifts, actually, to be able to see into situations, into human beings, and have a knowledge that's not based on intellect. It comes from this intuitive place. And if it's done right and it's done well, can actually change people's lives. It can help. And a medium, for example, gives messages from people who have crossed over. And I have worked with a top medium, Thomas John, for many years on radio and at his events. I help him. And when I see him giving messages to these people who are grieving, basically, over a lost loved one, especially parents with children, and the messages come through and they're so specific. There is no way that he could have had prior knowledge to this situation. And he's talking to these people. And I see the absolute comfort and closure that takes place in healing because of these messages. To me, it's just very beautiful.
It really is. And I think, I was just going to say, I think that's incredible. And I have heard him and I think it's amazing. And I want to talk to you more about that in the next segment, as well as just more about your work and parenting in general. So hang on for a sec, Laura Smith. We are talking to Laura Smith. She is the host of The Way Home on WGCH 1490 AM in Greenwich, Connecticut. I'm Michelle Jerson. More coming up in a few.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson. Motherhood is a journey. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
We are speaking with Laura Smith. She is the host of The Way Home with Laura Smith on WGCH.com. And also, if you are in the Greenwich, Connecticut area, on 1490 AM. Laura, thank you so much for joining me today. I love speaking with you. I've always loved listening to all of your radio shows because they are just so interesting and they have such interesting guests. And we were just talking about Thomas John, who's a medium who you've had on for many years, and just how amazing he is. And I think that type of radio really captures listeners. I mean, everybody wants a reading.
For many years, when I started this 12 years ago, people were a little reticent to kind of get near it in terms of sponsoring and things like that because it was very taboo, even up until like 12 years ago, to have a psychic on. And there was skepticism around it. And there was also this sort of reputation of it being sort of like the Miss Cleo on TV trying to extort money out of people and stuff. I just knew in my heart that it was going to be a huge category one day and the world was going to wake up to it. And now it has. And so it's a pleasure to be able to bring on intuitives onto my program and not have to worry about, well, what are the higher ups going to think if I have these guests on? Because what happens is when you get a good one, like you were saying, Thomas John, who has come on my show, who is incidentally, he's going to be opening a residency in Vegas starting in January. Wow. But when you get someone of that caliber who has this gift where on my show for an hour, people would be calling in, and I'm talking thousands of people from all over the country would be calling in, and all he would be given was a name like Peter in Brooklyn or Alana in Ohio, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And they would say, does anybody from the other side have a message for me? And all of a sudden, he's bringing through in his messaging within that exact moment names of her deceased relatives, names of people that she's with now, the name of her husband. It's just so mind-boggling. And when I read articles about people trying to, discredit these intuitives, it breaks my heart because I've seen it in action. There is no way on planet Earth that any of the callers were planted. It was all live and happening spontaneously, and he was given no information whatsoever. Actually, he was just, Thomas John was just studied by Gary Schwartz, who is the number one authority at the University of Arizona. He has been studying psychic phenomena for many decades, and he literally just put out his findings. He did a study with Thomas John. It was a triple-blind study about his ability as a psychic. In other words, he was reading people that nobody knew that they were going to be read by him and vice versa and stuff. And Gary Schwartz basically said he was the best that he's ever seen in all of his years of studying people. So, so that's that whole thing, which is fascinating to me. But the way home, which you were on the other day, you graced my listeners with your wonderful knowledge. You and I used to work together when you did Passport Romance, which I just thought was an incredible thing. You're so knowledgeable about traveling. And now that you've put it into having your beautiful babies and transfer that great knowledge, I just think what you're doing is incredible. I was so happy to have you on the show the other day.
Oh, thank you. And, it's always a challenge because right now I have my little guy sitting on my lap who's basically like contorting his head backwards to look at me. And I'm trying to hold him in a way that he doesn't stare at the computer screen and also lets me speak to you. But I have to ask you, you have done it all. You have raised a beautiful woman. She is a successful musician, among other things, and while also working in radio. How did you do it all over the years?
I was a single parent. Surprisingly, ended up pregnant at a young age before I even started my career, kind of out of college. It was just sort of, thank goodness, it was kind of like you're dumb and you don't know what you're doing, so you just plod ahead and you do it. But I was a single mom from the get-go. Thankfully, I had the most incredible parents that at that time were living close by in Westport, Connecticut. I was in Westchester. And so I had the support of them on the weekends. They would help me watch her and stuff. But for the first, I would say 3 to 5 years, I didn't want to leave her in daycare because I don't know, it was just a thing. I just wasn't. Yep. I was raised in, the Midwest and overseas with my parents, but my mother was always home. She never worked. And so I couldn't fathom sending my kids somewhere and having somebody else raise them. And I'm not making a judgment on that. That was just my own personal call. And so for the first 5 years, I actually took jobs where she could come with me. So I would babysit at a gym. I would watch other kids for like $5 an hour, and I'd have 15 kids in the room. And I did that. I even worked in a daycare, and so she could come with me. So I took her everywhere, like what you're doing right now with Zach. He's on your lap. He's nursing or whatever he's doing. So that while you're working, I did the same thing basically. And, I didn't realize it at the time, what an unbelievable, you have to have a lot of strength and a lot of, just kind of I focus. I mean, I was just focused on her, and that's what I wanted to do. But I hadn't had a career yet. I hadn't started working. I was waitressing and doing odd jobs, and then going to these babysitting jobs with her. It wasn't until she was 10 years old that I said, I really want, if I don't start living my dreams now, I'm never going to do it. So that's when I started radio. I asked myself one day, I remember I was sitting and working in a gift shop that I owned very temporarily, and I said to myself, if I could be anywhere right now, where would it be? And the idea of sitting in a radio station at that time, we're talking 23 years ago, just seemed so fantastic and fun. I had no idea how to go about it, but I opened at the time the Yellow Pages because it was pre-computers for me. Yeah. And I called the first radio station that I saw in the phone book, which was WGCH, and the rest is history. But being a single parent and working, the balance, the mommy guilt, that stuff, it really didn't go away until she was much older, and I felt like I was through the woods on making sure that she was well taken care of every day. I had really wonderful friends who watched her for free after school every day, and she became part of their family in a certain sense until I got home from the radio station at 6 o'clock at night. And so, you're never doing it alone. Even if you're a single parent, these angels somehow come into your life and help you to raise your children the way you believe in raising them. So that's how it all started for me. But yes, she's 32 now. She lives in Berlin, Germany. And she's a musician, as you said, and a voiceover artist with her own voiceover business, and very, very successful. So, I look back on those days and I think, wow, how did I get through that? Parenting over all jobs in the entire world, parenting is the hardest. What do you think?
Yes. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And I guess I did a little bit of the flip side in that I started early in my career, and I very much enjoyed my career in radio and TV. And then I had these wonderful children later in life. So now I feel the struggle, or I should say the challenge of, okay, well, I know I love radio and I know I love doing it, but certain radio jobs, not all, certain, pay less than, say, a babysitter would cost now. And so so it is a struggle over, okay, well, it doesn't really make sense. So I would love to go and work. But at the same time, I felt tremendous guilt when I sent my daughter to daycare at 2 years old, because I kept her home for the first 2 years and we did everything together. And I finally enrolled her in daycare. Everybody was telling me I should do it for my own sake. And I just did not want to. And then when my son was coming around, being born, I just said, okay, you know what? I do need some time. And so I enrolled her, and it did turn out to be wonderful for her. But I still question every single day, am I doing the right thing for her? Am I doing the right thing for him? What type of work can I do that I could have both of them? I just recently taught some gym classes with him strapped to me. I mean, it's like I just do whatever I can, but it's a constant debate in my mind.
Yes. You feel when you have little kids and babies, every decision you make feels like a big one. And even if it's, should I exercise right now? And should I, strap them to me while I'm exercising? Everything, it's an exercise in mindfulness, right? You're making these decisions on a constant basis, and you're just hoping and praying they're good ones. Right. But I can only say that the people who are the most kind of focused and concerned about whether they're doing a good job, I've noticed growing up in life, those are really, truly the best parents, because you care so much and you're putting so much time into, really thinking through everything and thinking about what's best for your child, and also trying to live your own life, because you want your kids to see that you also have an identity that is beyond just their caretaker. But you don't want it to be to their sacrifice, where your job becomes more important. So it's a constant balancing act. And watching you over the years, I watched you, wait until you were really good and ready, and then decided to have a family. And I always admired that about you, because I was always, constantly torn, because I had my child young before I got to start my career. So I was always, very torn, like, who do I take care of at this exact moment, her, or should I go out and get a job so that I can pay, I feel like you did it in a way that was just so wonderful. But you're telling me now that even you go through times of struggle and worry.
Oh, yes, 1,000%. And I feel no matter the age, you can look at it both ways. I can look at you and say, well, here, you're still young and you still have so many years ahead of you to continue your career and to travel and to do whatever you'd like. And now I'm focusing on the parent. And yes, every day is a debate in my mind as far as for the exact reasons that you said. I should be working harder. I should be doing more. I want them to see, what I used to do or even forget what I used to do and do something new. But then, I have no time. And so it's a constant every day.
Right. But you do it, and you're doing it. I know without a doubt in my mind you are doing the most incredible job, and you're just, again, that word mindful comes to me. When you're mindful, the success comes from being mindful about the things you do and the things you talk about with your kids. And for me, I was close to my family, but my mom and I had more of a kind of old traditional transactional mother-daughter type of relationship, whereas when I raised my daughter, we were so tight at the hip for 5 years, and she was my only child and still is my only child. We kind of forged a friendship that is so unique and almost very different from what I have with my own mom, as much as I love her. Like my daughter tells me everything. Sometimes I'm like, do I really need to know all of this? But it's been, to me, that's been a revelation that I was so close to her, and like you, I nursed for almost 3 years, and it really, the friendship that we have and the bond that we have is just kind of so amazing to me, because it's what happens when you dedicate yourself to creating the best relationship and the best children that you possibly can. The results actually work out. You look back, and I look now at what I have with her, and I'm like, wow, it was worth every tear, every fear, every joy, every sacrifice. It was worth all of it to have the relationship that I have with her now.
Well, that
you're doing
beautiful.
the right thing.
Thank you. And that is wonderful to hear from you. And tell everybody again when they could hear your show, The Way Home with Laura Smith, on WGCH, which is 1490 AM. If you are near Connecticut, it's out of Greenwich, Connecticut. Also WGCH.com. If you are not in the area, you are live every day, right? Monday through Friday from 5 to 6 p.m.
That's it. Exactly. Thank you. You gave all the coordinates. The Way Home with Laura Smith, a complete gamut of conversations with beautiful people, meaningful stories. And you were on last week, and I think we are going to replay that show sometime this week as well, because I have an engagement that was pre-done before this. So you were wonderful as the Passport Mommy coming on the show, and you continue to do so, and you're helping so many people with your wonderful open candor. You're so open and honest about what you're dealing with, Michelle, but you're an absolute light in the world. You have created these beautiful children with your husband, and I'm so grateful. I know that the world's in good hands when I see mommies like you. So thank you for letting me be on your show today, and thanks for being on mine last week.
Oh, anytime, Laura. Well, I look forward to our continued friendship, and it was really nice to hear just another point of view. You can hear my little one, but just hearing you and your journey has been remarkable. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. More coming up in a few.
Motherhood is a journey. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
So many of us have moms and dads who are on Medicare or Medicaid. Maybe you yourself are on Medicaid. And so for that, I wanted to have with me Sherrod Mackey. He is the project officer for the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. And he's just going to talk to us a little bit today about enrollment and why you should be taking a look at your plan and making sure that you meet this deadline. Hi, Sherrod. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Michelle. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So tell me a little bit, when does Medicare open enrollment end?
Yes, Michelle. So we wanted to remind your listeners that open enrollment, it actually began on October the 15th, and it runs through Saturday, December the 7th. So we're asking your listeners to please think about your current needs, your parents' current needs, their primary care provider, any new medications. Then shop and compare for plans to determine if changes are needed. We would like for them to please utilize our new Medicare Plan Finder. You can find it at Medicare.gov, or you can call 1-800-MEDICARE to compare the plans.
Perfect. Because I know it does sneak up on us. The date just comes up and then we're like, oh no, we didn't do our research. There could be better plans. There could be better options for us. So what do Medicare beneficiaries need to do during open enrollment to make sure that they're all set?
Like I said, give 1-800-MEDICARE a call. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week live person support mechanism. Again, that's 1-800-MEDICARE, 1-800-633-4227. Again, we have this plan finder. It's a compare tool. It's very user-friendly on Medicare.gov. It's been redesigned for better use, and it's now mobile-friendly for beneficiaries to compare plans.
Perfect. And who can participate in Medicare open enrollment?
All Medicare beneficiaries.
Okay. And if somebody's, say, not sure that they are eligible for Medicare, how would they find that out?
You will go through Social Security.
Got it. Okay. And why is open enrollment important for people with Medicare? Why can't people just enroll at any point?
Why they can't enroll at any point? So we have this open enrollment window where beneficiaries can enroll. If they happen to miss that December 7th deadline, if you are a Medicare Advantage or currently on Medicare Advantage plan, you do have another window between January 1st and March 31st. Or
okay.
If you miss that December 7th deadline, and we do have some wiggle room, but it has to be kind of a different circumstance.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned the Medicare Advantage plan. Why should someone consider the Advantage plan?
Because they offer additional benefits over Original Medicare. Original Medicare is Part A and Part B combined. Advantage plans, they open up the option of vision, dental, and hearing, as well as the Original Medicare.
Got it. Okay. And, hearing is something that I feel many people may not think about until they really need to, and then they're like, oh, do I have hearing coverage? So definitely that's a good point. Where, again, can people go just to learn more about Medicare? Maybe they could get some local help in their own community.
Again, Medicare.gov is a great resource. And then in each state, we have state health insurance assistance programs. Mm-hmm. You can call 1-877-839-2675, and they will direct your listeners to the SHIP in their state.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sherrod McKay. Let me start again. Thank you so much, Sherrod Mackey. Very informative. He is the project officer for the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It is so important to have your health. And I know that there have been people who miss the open enrollment, or they realize last minute, oh my gosh, I didn't research the right plans. And then they're calling frantically because they don't have coverage or their coverage was cut off. So you definitely want to make sure that you do have things in order, especially if you have children and you are on Medicaid, if you have parents, elderly parents, not even elderly, you don't have to be elderly to have Medicare. Point is, you want to make sure that you have health benefits for you and your family so everybody can remain the healthiest that they can absolutely be. And don't forget, you could always head to PassportMommy.com if you're looking for some family travel ideas, or if you're looking for some tips on baby raising, as you could hear mine in the background right here, how to balance everything. And you could also go to social. Passport Mommy is on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for listening.